What does Grand Forks need to make it a better place to live? Well, that was a topic of discussion at the Grand Forks City Council meeting on this Monday night. Results of a survey from the Longest Table event were presented to the council. The number one priority, more affordable housing. Here's the full presentation.
2.2.
Presentation on the longest table.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. My name is Catherine Kester. I'm the Director of the Greater Grand Forks Young Professionals, and presenting alongside me today will be Becca Bombach, our co-organizing organization, Director of Community Foundation, Becca Kruger with Grand Forks Region EDC, Brandon Bombach, there's a lot of Bombachs here, sorry about that, Brandon Bombach with Grand Forks Region EDC. We are really excited to tell you a little bit about the success of Longest Table this year, and the city was a really strong partner on that, so we'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your initiatives and investment into this really great community event. So Longest Table started last year in our first year in 2018, and we had 717 guests come to the table. That was held on 3rd Street in downtown Grand Forks. This year we are very excited to announce that we beat that record by inviting and successfully hosting 868 guests at that table on September 4th. And we expanded the table a lot this year, so the table was 1,250 feet long and had room for 1,000 people at that table, but we were really excited to beat our record from last year and in even just our second year. Our co-organizing team are members that I just mentioned to you, as well as Greta Slesky with the city, Luke Diekman and Mike McLean with JLG, and then Camden Larson representing Red River High School. This event was very different from last year, but also very similar. Last year it was completely funded by grant support, and then co-partnered with the city on the micro funding for the grants. And then this year it was very heavily supported by the business community and many investments made into that to allow us to do another successful year of Longest Table. We were also recognized at the North Dakota Main Street Summit for one of Governor Burgum's awards. Grand Forks was recognized for the Longest Table for livability for all ages. And our co-organizing team was really excited about this achievement and recognition of this project and this program that we've hosted for 2 years.
Again, thank you so much for your support. One of the best parts of the Longest Table is that we were able to capture quite a bit of data. We started this last year, and then we took it to University Avenue and again implemented the data piece of the Longest Table to capture survey results. Last year really focused on more of a broad spectrum of what do you think about your community, what are the priorities that we should hit. This year we focused a little bit more on the University Avenue corridor, as we were the Community Foundation and Knight Foundation, as you know, are working on the University Avenue corridor study with JLG Architects. So the main areas that we gathered data, just like last year, demographics, but then we also added in programming priorities and redevelopment priorities for the University Avenue corridor, and those community priorities were very similar. I'm just going to click this, and if you go to longesttablegf.com, you will have a link to view the results. This is the same way that we had our results presented from last year. So it's going to look very similar for those that have used it before, but it is interactive. So I'm on the first of 4 slides here, and you can see that this is our demographic information. And just to briefly go over how it works, if you are interested in what the female population that was at the table thought, you could click that and it will change the information on that slide. So you can see specifically, perhaps it's the 9% that weren't born in the United States, if any of them were UND faculty or staff, etc. So it's very interactive, and as we go forward into some other of these other categories, you'll see how useful it really is.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Becca Kruger with the Grand Forks Region EDC, and I also serve on the board of Young Professionals. One of the things that we wanted to do with this data was to measure some of those priorities in the community. And in both year 1 and year 2, we tracked along the same questions. One of the things that we asked was, what are the most important things to work on to improve the future of Grand Forks? Again, gauging what people in this community find important. The top three things were increasing availability and affordability of housing. That measured 32% of respondents chose that as one of their top three things. 30% said adding more recreational opportunities, and this was actually the greatest priority among those who were new to the community. 39% of the respondents said were 1 to 4 year residents. Then we had a tie, growing the economy with more good jobs and improving downtown walkability and bikeability. Becca already showed you the interactive data sets that are available publicly to anybody in Grand Forks who are working on projects, or to city department heads and to the city and council and county commission. One of those things is that we can parse that information by select categories, and I just wanted to show you some of those ways that we have done that. We wanted to gauge what those 18 and under are also thinking about their community. As you know, workforce is something that can be a challenge, and we're always looking at how do we retain our youth here in Grand Forks. So for those 18 and under, you can see that there were a different set of priorities. 46% said improving downtown walkability and bikeability. Building a local arts and culture scene was also important, and improving diversity and inclusion. Additionally, we measured the perceptions of those who aren't born in the U.S. but have come here to reside as either permanent residents or refugees. Recreational opportunities ranked high, and then also improving diversity and inclusion and becoming accepting to newcomers. So you can see how when you look at different populations, things that might be important to one set of people aren't necessarily important or rank lower. So when you're looking at different priorities within the community, looking at the whole picture and being able to measure perceptions across the board and having that interactive tool can be very useful. Also, those who moved to Grand Forks for jobs, again, talking about that retention piece, the priorities ranked a little bit differently. So the local arts and culture scene, growing the economy, and again, improving the downtown walkability and bikeability measured high. We also can see that there is a little bit of a juxtaposition. Obviously, those people within our community who have different life experiences might think differently. So, for example, those who had kids at home, increasing affordability and availability of childcare was in the top 5 priorities. But those who did not have kids at home, it was in the bottom 2 priorities. So, as you're going through the data, just acknowledge that you can search by different backgrounds and get a perception or gauge of what folks from different backgrounds are thinking. But holistically, we also have that where you can see a measurement across the board. This was perhaps the funniest and maybe not the most surprising, but lowering taxes was a low priority across the board. It was actually one of the bottom 3 priorities overall across all respondents. But you can see the disparity. In those 19 to 34, they really didn't care about taxes that much. Only 4.5% of them chose it as one of their top 3 priorities. While those 55 to 90-year-olds, it measured much higher, 24.5%. We also asked about favorite spaces and amenities in Grand Forks because we want to know what we are doing well. University Park, the Greenway, Choice Fitness, downtown, Town Square, the library, the mall, UND, and REA all served quite high. But you can see there's many things that people felt Grand Forks was doing positively. We do have access to all of this raw data should you like to see it. It's not housed publicly right now at the moment. Just because it's in long text form, but if you, as counselors, would like access to that or anybody else, they can request that. And then we also asked what public spaces or amenities would be awesome to have that we currently do not have. Across the board, you can see that more came into one of the highest words, but also indoor winter space and indoor youth spaces was something that was measured over and over again, as well as more art, parks, and then also a lot of talk about dog parks that didn't flood. With that, you can see that last year we asked the same set of questions. This year we did add availability and affordability of childcare as an option, so you can see there's nothing to measure against that. But you can see year over year how perceptions in the community might have shifted, and we plan to continue tracking these same things. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Brandon, who will talk about programming.
Thank you, members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity. It was a really fun event. The main takeaway was getting all these people together, but the data has been a lot of fun, and I think it's been said a few times, but the website, I really encourage you to click through it. We're pulling out a few of these narratives and stories, but it's a lot of fun to dig in for yourselves. Some of the top programming priorities were pretty universal across all of the respondents of the survey, and there was a lot of agreement. Love the park events, specialty shops, and street events. And so it shows us a little bit we're on the right path, but as you saw in the last word cloud, we could use more of them in most people's opinions. Now, we got into redevelopment priorities because this longest table event took place on University Corridor, and there's an adjacent study taking place right now too. And so we want to look at, in particular, we asked about these 4 areas listed there and mapped right here. So that's Greek Row parking lot. That's specifically asking about the area across from the fraternity houses in the open parking lot of University just east of Columbia. University and Washington intersection, the warehouse district as you get downtown, and then the last leg, which is YMCA to 3rd Street. So you can see the 4 locations circled there. One important thing to note, and I'm going to show it to you by clicking back into the data real quick, is that overall there was strong support, or at least optimism, for redevelopment of all 4. And to draw your attention to that on our 4th screen, again, you can click through all of this. We're just going to pull out a couple of narratives. So in the top of the page, you see the light blue bars. If 1 indicates no potential, 5 indicates strong potential, and 3 being neutral, you can see that the majority of our respondents are going to fall into the 4 or 5s more than the 1 or 2s across all of those locations. So that tells us there's a narrative here that there's a general optimism, or at least a priority set for development all across the corridor. So it's a strong narrative right away, but when we start to break down each of these locations, we find that there's, I guess, those who are really in favor and those who are really against. And this is the fun part of this tool. So if we click into those who thought that the Greek Row parking lot had strong development, of those who voted for that, 5, strong potential, you also see an overrepresentation of strong potential within Warehouse, University Washington intersection, and YMCA to 3rd. So what we can conclude there is that if you think there's strong potential in the first location, you're going to generally think there's strong potential across all of them. Very similar, if you get close to center, you're not really sure if your mind's made up on it, you're going to see overrepresentation across all those locations in the center. And then lastly, as our narrative continues, you're going to be falling into the camp of 1s as well. The point here that we want to point out to you is that there may be a component of education required. That'd be the big takeaway we would take, regardless of your development project. People get excited when they start to see renderings such as this. That's when they're really going to weigh in. But overall, there's going to need to be an educational component. So that's one of our takeaways. As we run through those lists of 4 locations, we'll just give you the aggregate data. Of all the people who indicated that the Greek Row is a priority, as it's 4 or 5, some sort of priority, not on the negative side, that's 35% of our respondents said there's a priority for development. The next intersection or location is University Avenue and Washington intersection, where 46 indicated a priority. This increases as we get closer to downtown, with the warehouse district of 50% of our respondents indicating there's some kind of redevelopment potential, and then 53% with that last leg, YMCA to the 3rd Street corridor. So the story here is the closer we get to downtown, at least the perception of our respondents are that there's more potential for redevelopment. there's a lot of ways you could dissect those data, but it's just really interesting. We show you the power of the data. We show you the importance of our residents' perceptions and how by playing with these data, you can tease out a lot of really interesting narratives and learn from them.
So one of the other really exciting pieces about Longest Table is what happens throughout the next year. So a lot happens. We have the data piece, of course, and that data is utilized in many different ways. We also, over this last year from 2018 to 2019, have seen other organizations or smaller communities do Longest Table. So Red River hosted a version of the smallest table. Red River hosted a version of the Longest Table, and then the Alaris Center, when they had their Spectra Bombs conference here, hosted a version of it as well. So people have latched onto that concept and have really created their own table and invited people to it as well. I think one of the most exciting pieces is the partnership that we have with the City of Grand Forks and what that enables us to do. So we had 19 micro grant applications. People could apply for a grant up to $3,000 in micro seed funding, and we have awarded 9 of those to receive funding. So here's the full list of them that will be receiving funding for 2019. Just to call out a few: bathroom murals in Grand Forks high schools and middle schools and elementary schools. Tyler Larson is working on the Penny House, a location for junior high kids and high school kids to come and gather in a safe environment, provide programming, and he actually is opening a location in Columbia Mall. So he's moving forward with that. And then one that's just was very unique compared to all the other ones was some neighborhood community building. So there, in the near North Side neighborhood, there will be some crock pot meal classes and just some community building there. So we're really excited about what will come from this Longest Table and how these microgrants will really help people get the ideas off the table and into the community and really help create some change and positive effects in the Greater Grand Forks community. We are willing to take some questions if you guys have them. But thank you for your time, and we really appreciate being here.
Well, thank you. I'm very impressed. It was a wonderful project, wonderful experience, and now we have wonderful information to make our community better. So I can't wait till next year because it's really fun to see this project grow. Any comments or questions from council? Just thank you. I mean, this is incredible. It's going to take us a while to digest it and make use of it.
Maybe you said, but do you have a date for the next one?
We do not have a date set. We are working with 2 partners who have already come forward that they're interested, so no official details yet, but probably around that same September, as we've done the first week of September both years, and it's been very successful.
I think we have to thank you guys for making that many meals
Absolutely,
available.
yes.
Thank
a
you.
hot meal for every attendee was very appreciated.
It was, thank you.